You're listening to the Accordion to Me podcast with Veronique Medrano. Hi, I'm Veronique, and on this week's episode, we get to chat with actor and director Kevin Alejandro. From San Antonio to the big screen, Alejandro has made a prolific imprint on pop culture with his roles on Lucifer, True Blood, CW's Arrow, Ugly Betty, and many, many more. We catch up with the actor-director on the set of the hit CBS show Fire Country and delve into his artistic journey. This podcast is sponsored by Cricket Wireless. I recently made the switch to Cricket, and they removed the extra hassle of staying connected and calling within the US and Mexico. And trust me, that is always an issue with every other service provider except for Cricket. Make the switch and join the Cricket Comunidad with me, Veronique. And if you think that's too good to be true, then download the Try Cricket app from the App Store to start your free trial of nationwide 5G that covers 99% of folks in the US. It's just one reason why people who come to Cricket stay with Cricket.
One trial per person, 5 people per home address. An unlocked GSM-compatible smartphone is required. Cricket 5G requires a compatible device and is not available everywhere. For 5G coverage, see cricketwireless.com/map for more details.
Hi, Kevin!
Hi, Veronique. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm not in the fires of whatever it is that you're doing. I feel cool. As you can tell, I'm sweatered up, so I'm good.
Be very, very grateful. It's an intense show.
I've watched it, and I have to say, yo te persino, because for real, that is some intense stuff. And so
It is.
what I wanted to kind of like start off with is, I don't know if a lot of people know that you're from San Antonio, or that, you know, you were in Texas, from Texas, and just talk to me about the environment that you were in that kind of inspired you to go into acting.
Well, I was born in San Antonio, and I had to leave San Antonio at an early age, around 8, I believe it was, for a bunch of different reasons. Life was not the easiest kind of life growing up. So we left San Antonio and we moved to West Texas, a little place called Snyder, Texas, which is right between Lubbock and Abilene. It's on the map because of cotton and oil. And that's where I grew up. But randomly, in this little tiny town, there was a theater department of the high school that was there that was very successful. And you wouldn't have expected it. And it wasn't until I got into high school and joined their theater program my freshman year that I realized, through the help of the high school theater program director, Jerry Worsham, where he sort of lit a fire and said, you know what, there's something to you. If you continue on a path, this particular path, this could be your way to go to college. And I'd never even really thought about college. It's just something that we don't do. You know, my family, we were just, we're a bunch of workers. We work really, really hard, and mostly manual labor and those kinds of things. We knew our place in a little town full of white people.
Full of gringos.
Yeah.
Just to nicely say it. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but I don't want to shed any bad light on that town because I loved it, and I loved growing up in a tiny little town where everyone knew each other. But we knew our place. We knew what we could do. We knew, according to those times. And so I started doing his plays and competing with his program, and ended up winning the best actor at state. At the University of Texas in Austin, all the schools around the area, all through Texas, compete in a 40-minute translation of a play. And I got that scholarship, I got that award, which led to a scholarship to the University of Texas. And, thank God, everything just sort of pointed its way for me. And I had such a passion for it and love for it that I didn't argue with the universe, if that makes sense. And I went along with it, and it led me here.
And that makes perfect sense, because I find like your career, I mean it so strongly, that you have such a huge imprint in pop culture that I don't think people understand. Like, you have been on every major procedural, every big pop culture like moment within, like I mentioned a few of them, True Blood, but I mean recently Arcane. You have done so much that, to me, your career has so much complexity and so much depth to it, and it's so beautiful just to watch you continue to blossom in your path. So I understand completely, like, the universe said this is where you need to be, and like, just looking at everything, I'm like, okay, the universe was right.
You
And
don't
so
have to tell me twice.
but speaking of, like, the universe speaking to you in a sense, I've noticed that you have made a concerted effort, and I say this in regards to your peers. Your peers are not doing this, and I say this with all love and respect, but you have made a conservative effort to continue to hone your craft with shorts and short films. And so, can you kind of, like, just explain to us why that is important? Why that, just making a short film, is so important to the craft of acting and being in that environment?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. It started, I've always, the further that I got into this business, when I moved out to LA, I didn't really have a lot of money for acting classes and those kinds of things. But I needed to be on set, so I did a lot of extra work, background work, and I signed with a background casting agency. And within those moments of being a background actor, I didn't really step off. I utilized those moments to kind of incorporate that experience as an acting class for me, so that once I knew that I would get my opportunity, I would understand what was being said, what was being talked about, and how I should respond. So that was the beginning of, like, my obsession with every element of filmmaking, and I usually, I really connect mostly on a level with the filmmakers themselves, the DPs, the grips, in that world behind the scenes, what makes it happen. And I was always asking questions and just sort of fueling myself so I understood the process. And then my wife and I had our baby 16 years ago, and she got me a little camera, like a little JVC camera, to just kind of film the experience and kind of, and then something that I wanted. And honestly, like, filming my kid do certain things started to reignite a fire in me of saying, I'm telling the story of my son right now. I wonder what other stories I can tell. And that then it just evolved into, like, making them on these cheap little cameras, and then the iPhone came out, and at a higher level, making them on iPhones, and just to really learn, for myself, that I had the ability to tell a story. And it was through those little short films of just trying to experiment and understand that process where I was introduced to the Warner Brothers Directors Program, because I started to shadow, and I really started to engulf myself into the process of being a filmmaker. And it was those little short films that were my version of the high caliber things that they needed, but mine were these low qualities. But I thought that what I had done was tell a story, and they agreed, and it got me into the Warner Brothers Directors Program, which then led me to an episode of Lucifer, and that really launched my directing career.
Wow. Oh my God. That's so cool. Because I think a lot of the times when we, like, there's a lot of conversation about the industry, a lot of conversation about, oh, there's a lot of, hurdles and roadblocks and things like that. But it's just interesting that, like, for you, no was not an answer. No was never like a word in your mind or in your vocabulary,
Mhm.
outside of scripts. So
No,
you know
no,
that
no is always the first maybe to me.
that's good. I never thought about it like that. No is the first maybe.
I learned that from Christiane Reed, one of our executive producers on the show, who helps run Jerry Bruckheimer Productions, and she says that, and it really stuck to me, and I've always sort of try to remember that, especially now as my career launches forward, with starting my production company with my wife and my sister-in-law, Alejandro Films, we get a lot of no's. We get a lot of no's as actors too. But in the producing world, a no means give me a reason to say yes, convince me.
Okay. And so speaking of directing, something that I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud and happy because I love what you're doing with this show about just representing like not the typical Latino or Mexican dad. It's not the typical pues you stay at home, or the way you talk to your daughter. There's a lot of equality and a lot of respect there. And so speaking of directing, you are directing an upcoming episode of Fire Country. And so I would love your no spoilers obviously, but I would love your take on how these different little steps in you directing over the years kind of made this experience either different or things that you kind of took away from the experience directing this episode of Fire Country.
Well, the beauty of directing or taking on the responsibility or the reins of any sort of situation where people are looking to you for answers when they have questions, the experience is always different, right? You don't respond in the same way. This particular episode was extremely challenging. I mean, the first one I directed was challenging in itself, but this one was just a different sort of puzzle to put together. And I mentioned earlier, joking around, that be grateful that you're cozy over there because this show is hard, and this show is extremely difficult. It is probably one of the most physically demanding, mentally demanding projects I've ever gotten the opportunity to be a part of, and a lot of that has to do with the elements, with the snow, with the rain, with the cold, with, we have 8 days to shoot an episode, and our episodes are extremely ambitious, very action packed, full of heart as well. So that balance of how do I get this action, but also maintain this heart and put them together,
Yeah.
ends up being, a bit of a puzzle so that we can still keep our energy and keep going. And we have some, we're coming out of season one on a high note, and I know people have been missing our show. I've been missing our show. We had the strike going on, so our intention is to come back this season right out of the gate as hard as we can, to remind people why they loved us in the first place, but then give them that extra mile. We're a half order season this year, so we're putting a lot into it. And I really feel that we're doing our best to give the audience what they missed, for those times off, so that they know when they come back, they're grateful that they waited.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've taken a look at some stuff that got sent to me, and I'm just like, wow. And even the trailers, the stuff that's coming out, you're very correct. Like, there's just such a high bar for this show, and there's a reason it's such a hit, because it's just doing something for procedurals, especially because you have been in multiple procedurals, and you can understand, like, there's a rhythm, there's a rhyme and a rhythm to it. And so with that being said, what do you think, as not just the actor and the director, but possibly as a viewer, what do you think is the reason why procedurals are so beloved within the TV landscape?
I think the audience loves the opportunity to be smart. They're a lot smarter than sometimes other shows give them credit for. So I think they love the opportunity to check out and invest in a program and see something they wouldn't usually see in real life, and try to figure it out with the characters, with the writing, and a lot of times they'll figure it out before it comes out, and I think it gives them a sort of sense of satisfaction. But I think what sets our show apart from many procedurals is the amount of heart that we put onto it. I think we've done an excellent job with creating characters that people care about. And a lot of times procedurals will go into the direction where it's all about the procedure, which is fun in itself. But I think what makes us really pop is that we have humans, that the procedure is the background to the human connection that we're creating. And I think that's the beautiful thing that Fire Country does.
Speaking to that, like, human aspect to creating works, what is something for you that you feel is really important when you take on a role, and injecting the aspects of yourself, or injecting the more humanness of it into the roles that you play?
The most important thing to me about that whole process is to believe myself and to do the work, to trust what is given to me, and then take my responsibility to the next level of helping to contribute and elevate that project. So the most important part of me is to show no cracks and to not be lazy and to do my work and to show up on set 100% every day and make sure that everybody that surrounds themselves with me knows that I have your back and that I'm going to do everything I can to make it the absolute best I can do. And I think that energy sort of radiates and, sort of explodes within the people, within the other cast and the crew members, where we all sort of in sync feel that vibe. And it's very important to me to walk onto a set and set that tone to say, you know what, I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to have an extreme amount of fun. And I'm here to hopefully help collaborate and elevate together.
Complexity Rescue with a low chance of success, so beat the odds. Let's go. A new fire country.
You have been listening to the Accordion to Me podcast, which is made possible by listeners like you rating and reviewing the podcast. Every time you leave us a review, one of your haters loses their wings and their wallet and maybe their keys. So if you love the podcast, leave us some stars and a quick blurb. Bye.
What do you feel is so vitally important for people entering this entertainment space when it comes to relationships and the relationships that they build, and the people that they surround themselves with? Because you're saying, like, you are creating an environment where, hey, I got your back. And I'm assuming you don't just give that to everybody, or maybe you do, but like, not, I'm just saying, but it's just, why is that so vitally important in these kinds of art spaces?
Well, listen, I mean, what we get to do as artists is we live alone a lot of times in our mind and in our hearts, hoping for the next opportunity, wondering where the next opportunity is going to come. And it's a very lonely, and it can be a kind of a sad place. But when it works, and it's an amazing feeling. And we've all gone through that as creatives, not only from the actor side, but as a creative person. When you get an opportunity to take it to the next level, you invest in it. So to me, you said it early in your question. The relationships are the most important part, because you can't do it alone. So you need to create a company of people and trust with energy and souls and hearts, so that you all talk together, you all collaborate. And that is so important, that when you get that opportunity as an artist, that you don't be ungrateful for it. Be grateful, be excited, do your work. But most importantly, when you get the opportunity, know that you deserve it. Don't only live in the gratefulness, live in the, now I've been hired to do a responsibility, now you better show up and take it even higher than they expected. Because then every project you do after that word circulates around the neighborhood, so to speak, and they know that when they get Kevin Alejandro, they're going to get somebody who's going to have their back. And that's all I can say to all the younger artists. Work your ass off, do what you got to do, and when you get the opportunity, be grateful, but more importantly, be professional and show them the reason that they hired you.
I find this conversation so interesting, because it's like you're speaking out my brain. And I don't know if it just comes from like living in communities where there's a lot of Latinos. I'm from a small town. I'm from Bronzeville, Texas. It's not super huge. It's not like San Antonio, but like these are small towns where there's a lot of like people who are in farming, people who do a lot of manual labor. I'm literally on the border where I'm at. And so like a lot of this, I feel many times, speaks to that type of experience. And so like you were talking about, your parents and the manual work. And so like that work ethic, and how do you instill that, obviously in your kids or in any other people that, you mentor?
With my son, I have a 16-year-old son, about to be 16 now, who it's very important for me to give him chores. I grew up with a dad who worked in the oil fields. He was a mechanic. He was a tire guy. He was the everything. He was your Mexican. You know what I mean? And,
Like, what can
and
you
when I
not
got home,
do? That type of person.
I
Like,
know
what can,
exactly.
like, let me try to keep giving you stuff.
Exactly. And when I got home, when all my friends got to go do cool things after school, I had to go home and, do chores. I had to clean spark plugs and bolts with gasoline and wire brushes. Like those, and, growing up, I hated it. But, as I got older, I started to appreciate that work ethic. So I really, function that way. And so I put that, I direct that to my son. I give him chores. I know you hate it, but I talk to him different from the way my dad talked to me. I was like, I hate it. Yeah, my dad was a little bit, a little tougher than I am, but I
No,
learned
no, I
from that
got
as
you.
well.
I got you.
Um,
I got you. It's like, there's
I
a
learned
chancla,
from.
and there's a
Oh
chancla,
yeah,
and then there's the
there's
dishes,
there's
which
anything they can get their hands on. If my mom's cooking, if she has a spatula in her hand,
for me, it was the wooden
you know,
spoon. For me, it was
the
the wooden
wooden
spoon. I get
spoon.
you. Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah. I don't do it that way quite, but I do it with my words, And,
Yeah.
now that he's 16, he actually understands now, like there are certain things that he can do that his other friends can't do. And there have been a couple of moments where he's like, Dad, thank you for teaching me that. Because I was the hero of the day in my friend's eyes, kind of thing, And when it comes to on set, I try not to preach. I think that people get me because they just see me doing it, and they know that, just the other day, one of our producing director was like, "Where did you get your work ethic?" And that was an actual question, um, and it was never that we talked about it. It was just that he saw me, and I think, and I hope that that's, something that I can give back to the people that surround me by not saying, you should, by just saying, I'm doing this, join me.
Early in 2020, I was in an accident, and the consequences I was living with afterwards was a lot to handle all at once. So if you're like me and trying to recover while trying not to lose your car, lose work and therefore money, and super injured, and have a huge growing stack of hospital bills to pay, then you need a professional to get the care you need. In case of an accident, you need a lawyer to protect your rights and your wallet. And honestly, you don't have to look any further than that simple phrase by going to incaseofanaccident.com or encasodeaccidente.com for a free consultation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if the person who suffered the accident wasn't you, but maybe it was your tia, your abuelita, or your second cousin twice removed, don't worry. Everyone at incaseofanaccident.com or encasodeaccidente.com can speak Spanish, hablan español, and they can take text messages on WhatsApp at 888-990-0911. Don't forget to tell them that Veronique Medrano from Accordion to Me sent you.
We are now back from our commercial break. And I'm now going to talk about this spirit of giving back, of making sure to give, what you wish to receive. And so,
Mm-hmm.
from what I'm to understand, because I've been to the San Antonio Film Festival, I've seen a few of your shorts. I've just boats in the night. But the I guess I want to kind of touch on the fact that, you're giving back to a community that you used to live in by being part of the board for the San Antonio Film Festival. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, wow, like, oh my God, this person's like off in LA, off fighting fires. Like, I mean, not literally, but like, you know what I mean? Doing all of that. And yet, you're coming back to your community. Tell me how that kind of feeds into maybe your own personal dicho, the own personal thing that, you are trying to put out into the world.
It is about community, and it is about representing. A lot of people don't know who I am, and that's they see what they see on screen. So I take these opportunities, like being part of the San Antonio Film Festival, which was created by Adam Rocha, and he accepted my first short film out there, and then we just became friends. And um, I really love what he does with that program. It's like he represents our community in a way of at a heightened level, with nothing with respect. And a beautiful thing is that he's also a high school teacher, who just got approved for his high school principalship. But he lets his students help run the whole program, and he's one of those teachers that is similar to my teacher who gave me the opportunity in life and opened up the doors. And that's what I really respect about him and that program, because that's what he's doing, is he's helping those kids go, you are somebody, and you can do anything you want to do. However, you're going to have to work your ass off to get it. So here's a whole festival, run it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, running a whole
Um,
festival is not for the faint of heart. So yeah.
and it's a beautiful thing, and it is. It's one of the reasons that I started my production company. My wife is Filipino, her sister's Filipino, I'm Mexican. There's a lot of stories to be told there that people haven't had the pleasure of hearing yet, and it's important to me that those stories get out. In an entertaining way, nothing to like knock you over the head and make you feel sorry for anybody, but know that we come from something, and there's pride there, and we deserve to be equal all the way around,
Yeah,
and
and
that's why I love being parts of things like that have the same voice.
the beauty in what you're doing, especially, I could completely understand the struggles, in the sense of, I've read it, I've seen interviews about it, about the struggle of having, a Latin last name. Not Latin as in the Latin dead language. I mean Latin as in Latino, Mexicano,
Hmm.
that kind of last name. And so what was that transition? Was there at any point a time in which, people were booking you a certain way, and then they figured out that you were Latino and booked you a different way? Or have you just always had, the range of bookings that you've always had, in regards to your work, last name or not?
I've been like, talking about my body of work thus far. I've been really lucky and fortunate to be part of a lot of really cool stuff. And the only time that I mean, being Latino has actually always worked in my favor. You know, I went to college during the days of whatever scholarship I got. There was also affirmative action, which kind of stood in my corner as well. And then coming out to LA, there was a little bit of confusion about me, because I looked really pretty white. And then Alejandro threw everybody off, and there was like this whole that I was falling into, that I wasn't quite Latino, and that I wasn't quite white enough, and it was like just a weird thing. And the first team that represented me convinced me for about a month to change my name, because they were having trouble selling me as Latino, and they wanted to lean into the white. And I did it for 1 month. I think I changed it to Kevin Alexander, and
the,
and I
the
was like,
very gringo version of Alejandro, everyone.
yeah, yeah.
Alexander.
And it happened for a month, and then my sisters are tough ladies. Okay, the first thing my middle sister does, she calls me, "Are you stupid? What are you not an Alexander? You're an Alejandro. What are you thinking? You're an idiot. How could you let them do this to you?" Like, just went off on me, and it opened my eyes real quick. I was like, "You're right. You're right. I gotta be me. I gotta be me." So I changed it back and everything. And it was, it's weird because, and I'm kind of fully realizing this in this conversation, that it was that moment where I was like, I need to just let everyone think what they want to think, but just let them, this is who you're getting. This is what I am. This is who I am. And it's up to you to decide where to place me, because after that, I have no control over what you want to do with you.
Mm.
And I think within that came a certain confidence within myself. And then I started booking. And then people started to realize, well, he looks white, but he is pretty Latin. I grew up Mexican. And then it got to the point where I was booking roles where the name was like Billy Lyons, and they changed it to so and so Perez, or like where I started to change, started to change their minds a little bit, and then of course even that came in even further with like, okay, I'm making the right choices. Okay, you know what I mean? So there was a little bit of a pocket there where I was unsure about it. We come out to LA from small towns from all over the world. Everyone's a transplant, right? And everybody just wants to work. Everyone wants to get that dream, whatever that dream is, their manifestation, their idea of what that is. And they change things. They try to do that. We try to do that because we're just so hungry to work, so hungry to be like, give me the opportunity. Sure, I'll try this. Sure, I'll try that. And honestly, in my opinion, it's not until you actually own who you are where you're going to get those opportunities and people are going to trust you. Where you're like, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm going to give it all to you. And then I'll leave it there and move on to the next one.
I'm sorry, I'm doing my little finger snaps. That was so good. Like, wow, that's that's the truth of it. And it's interesting you bring that up, because for me and my journey through music and, and doing the different things that I do, that's always been the hardest part, is quieting the imposter syndrome of it all, and just
Yeah.
engaging with that really powerful confidence that just is already there, but it's just all the outside noise. It's so easy to get lost in it. So
Yeah,
easy.
and the imposter, the syndrome that you mentioned is a real thing at all levels. I still get it when I'm directing something, or when I get approved to direct something, and I read how big it is. I'm like, whoa, all right, I better step up. And then halfway through it, when things get complicated, I'm like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough to figure this out? And we all go through it, and I think it's a natural part of the process. We have, without a little bit of self-doubt, there becomes no hurdle to get over.
Mm.
And I think true success is falling down and getting up, jumping over a fence, breaking down a door. Like, we have to do that too. And for me, that's, it's not money and all of those are perks. It's stardom and, fame or whatever all that is that, people want. That's a perk. Real success is knocking down doors, is getting over something that you didn't think you can do. And yet here you are, Okay, say my show is really hard, and this last episode was really complicated, and there were a couple of moments where I was like, man, what is this? What am I doing? And then at the end of the day, once it was over, I was like, damn right I did that. There's more, But
Yeah.
I needed that moment of like doubt for me to go, why'd you doubt? Because you fixed it.
Mm. And speaking on, coming back around, to the show, a teaser without teasing. So season 1, and I'm a musician, so I'm gonna, this is a kind of like a music question. So season 1, what do you think the song that best encapsulates your character for season 1 was?
Oh man, that's a crazy question. This I don't even have an answer for that, man. The song that best encapsulates my personal character's journey.
Yeah. Out already? I'm gonna put the Jeopardy music down under here.
The Eye of the Tiger, baby.
Okay. And then for season 2, what do you think this is just Eye of the Tiger season 1 and season 2, or does season 2 have a different song that you feel best encapsulates your character's journey this season?
Well, season 2, a lot of things have changed. Like, a lot of things are different in season 2 that we wouldn't expect. So I'm just going to go with Rolling with the Homies.
Okay, you heard it. You heard it. Those are the two songs for his character. If you haven't watched it yet, get to watching it because season 2 is coming out or is out already. Just extremely grateful for the time that you've given us today here on the podcast, talking to us about your artistic journey. And I asked this last question to all my guests. What is life accordion to you?
For me, life, according to me, is family. I have an amazing family, and without them and their trust and their support, I would be nowhere.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for another wonderful episode of the Accordion to Me podcast. And as always, puro amor, puro besos, puro fire country.
Thank you for listening to Accordion to Me. The team behind this week's episode includes mixing and editing by Juan Pablo Diaz, theme music by Rodrigo Montalvo, produced by Javi G from MD Media. In-person recordings were done at the Podify Studios and remotely through Riverside FM. Accordion to Me is distributed through Anchor, and you can stream Accordion to Me wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm your host and executive producer, Veronique Medrano. Puro amor, puro besos, puro Tex-Mex.